Welcome, everyone. For those that are watching this live stream, the live broadcast, or for those that are going to be watching the replay, I have a special guest today. And this is a person that I met recently. We met through a mutual friend on Messenger. Actually, we've never met in person, but we've met and we have a lot in common. We have a lot in common. She's an author, she's so many things. And excuse me while I read it because she does so many things that I can't keep it all in my head. So I'm going to have to read it. Her name is April Wyett, and she is a holistic wellness counselor, a somatic performance coach, and a biodynamic breathwork and trauma release system practitioner. So I'm going to let April introduce herself and maybe explain a little bit about what she does, and then we'll get into some of the books or book that she's written. So, April.
Thank you, Teresa. It's so lovely to be here. Those who are watching or watching in the future, it's nice to be in the room with you. So yes, a lot of things that I love to do. And what that is just supporting people who are used to holding a lot in their lives. And so this is about having them recognize that with awareness, and from the inside out, we can really approach the nervous system. That's what it comes down to, right? When we feel safe, when we feel supported, our nervous system calms and relaxes. We're able to clearly think. We're able to manage our lives a little easier. Sure, the waves of the world and all the things happening around us are still going to happen, but we can have the capacity to be a little bit more present. And that really helps us to flow through life a little easier. So it's about nervous system resetting, right? And that's what I do with Living with Intention. That's my business.
And you had given me a brief biography, and I just want to read something that really resonated with me, what you sent me in the biography. And this is, you say, my work is rooted in a simple belief. When we learn to navigate our inner landscape with awareness and compassion, we create the foundation for meaningful change in every area of our lives. And I have to tell you, I love that. I absolutely love that. And I think that's where you and I resonate, that we both work with the inner landscape. I work specifically with the heart, which is connected to the vagus nerve, which is the parasympathetic nervous system. And you work, if I'm understanding you correctly, more globally with the nervous system.
Yes, but also that's a very good point. Seriously, Teresa, about the heart. Everything starts there with our hearts, and our nervous system is intrinsically, right, webbed from the heart. And so even research shows in utero, right, that's the first thing that develops is our heart.
Yeah.
And then the nervous system, everything branches out from there. And so we are connected to our environment, literally to the environment, to our mother, everything she's experiencing. And so this is where you can see patterns, right, of people and family dynamics and things, and how people are already, I'm just going to say, kind of pre-programmed when they're delivered, when they come into the world. And then it's us as we are growing and evolving and learning more about ourselves, about our own internal landscape, about making better choices that yes, these things happened in the past, or things that are out of my control. I didn't not have control at such a young age, or even in utero, what happened. But right now, putting our attention on our intention of wanting to feel better, wanting to experience life on a different level, we have the capacity to change. That's where the neuroscience comes in, right? Building those neural pathways and neuroplasticity. I'm just so fascinated with all of that.
Uh, and we really are the co-creators of our life. And
Mm-hmm.
I say co-creator because we can't do it alone. And it doesn't matter your belief and it doesn't matter what you call it, but there is a power higher than us. And
Mm-hmm.
that goes way back to ancient times, to the ancient spiritual wisdom, to the Buddhism,
Mm-hmm.
to India, to Sanskrit, everything that talks about you have that, whether you call it the God, an energy within you, a source, it doesn't matter what you call it, but you're connected to something higher than ourselves. And when we connect, we could only connect to that higher power through our heart. That's where
Mm-hmm.
it starts. And that's where our authentic self is. Your brain is your ego. And that's fine. We have to have a brain. We have to be logical. I mean, there's certain things we need that brain for. But when we get stuck in that, what you call a mindset, and that's the brain, is that it's like a computer. It only spits out what you put
Yes.
into it. It can't change
Yes.
anything. So when you're totally in your head, you're acting a certain way because, like you said, that's the way you've been programmed from birth. So
Mm-hmm.
the brain is remembering and your body's remembering a lot of those
Oh,
things,
yes.
but you could also change it.
Mm.
You don't have to be stuck in that loop. And once you get your heart working with your brain, that's where you could make changes because the brain responds to the nervous system,
Mhm.
but the heart dictates how the nervous system will respond to the brain. And I know we're not here to talk about all those things. That's a great
Well,
conversation
actually,
for another
this is kind of
time.
leads into why
Yeah,
I'm writing a book too.
yeah. So
So,
that's what,
yes.
so why don't we take it from there
Mhm.
and lead into now what was your purpose? Why did you write the book? I always like the backstory, book
Mm.
or books, and choose what you want to say about it.
Yeah. Well, I think how we're leading up to it is beautiful, Teresa. It really is, because I didn't realize how dysregulated I was. I grew up in a very dysfunctional family. My mother was disabled, heavily medicated back in the 70s, on medications and things. And so when I realized that I had these patterns and I wanted something more for myself, I really had to speak up. I really had to communicate in a different way with my husband. We had been married for, oh my gosh, 26 years, and I was 40, and I wanted to go back to school. And there was a uh, military.gov email that came through, right? Usually that's definitely trash, delete, right? But it had, you and your dependent can go back to school through the yellow ribbon program. And we were transitioning. He was getting out of the Navy. He was retiring. And I thought, well, this is something for me. This is something I could do. And so when I talked to him about it, I was very taken back. For 24 years, I had been following this man around all over the world. We lived on the West Coast. We lived in Japan for a total of 10 years. We moved back to the West Coast. I was doing all of these things out of duty, right? That pre-programmed from my childhood of I need to do things for my mother so that way I would feel safe. And I didn't realize it at this time when I was that I was even going to write a book. I just knew I needed to go back to school. And so he was very perplexed. We were moving back to Iowa, his hometown. We had a son that was in middle school, transitioning him. His father had Lewy body disease, which is very, very aggressive, as you know. And so we were managing all that. He was managing all that. And here I am saying, I want to go back to school and I need your help with this September 11th GI Bill. And he was just perplexed. He said, I don't understand. You're really good at sales. You're really good with customer service. And he just kept refusing or just walking away from me. And so one day we were sitting at a traffic light, and this was in Ventura County. I still remember it. And I brought up that yellow ribbon program again. And I said, I looked into it. We were moving from California, Southern California, to suburb of Des Moines. And I said, DMAC, the Des Moines Area Community College, will take the yellow ribbon program. We just have to do this, this, and this. And he was just, I don't understand. What is it about school? Like, he raised his voice at me, and usually we're very communal, nothing like that. And this roar, I'm not kidding, roar came out of me. And I just blurted out, I didn't even think of it, because I'm worth more than a minimum wage job. And I can count 4 times in our marriage, being together for 40 years, that I've raised my voice to him like that. And he just was like, whoa. He was finally like, okay, this means a lot. And so I said, I've been following you around for 24 years. I've been giving up jobs, friendships. I've been uprooted. I've had to adapt. I've had to do so much sacrifice for you. Can't you do just this one thing for me? And so that's actually what I wrote about in an anthology I was part of. And I believe that helped me to recognize I do have a story to tell. I can contribute a chapter. That felt easy to me, right? Easing into it, along with other amazing authors that were part of this anthology, Moving Beyond Boxes, the journey to self-discovery. That's the title of it. And my title of my chapter is The Lion's Roar. So I wrote about that because I feel that so many women, especially, definitely put their needs last. We are always self-sacrificing, giving to our families. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, but when it's detrimental, when we're feeling those pains, when we're feeling depressed and we just don't know why, this is our nervous system communicating to us. We can feel it in our heart, just as you beautifully talked about in the beginning. Your intuition was spot on, Teresa, by the way.
Yeah,
we feel it in our hearts, the heaviness, the longing, the maybe guilt, that we want this for ourselves. And that means that we have to be selfish. Well, this is a good selfish. This is something that really inspires us, that gives us that spark, that reason to, and this is my business name, be living with intention. Be intentional about how we're showing up. So that's how I started writing. I also feel that it's building community, right? A sanctuary of support, such as this beautiful writer's corner that you've built here. People coming together and learning. We're meant to learn from each other. We can read hundreds of books, but until we apply it in person or real life experiences, it's not really learning. We're not absorbing it into our system. And then this is how we can self-regulate. We can understand what's happening in our body. be a little bit more present, and start appreciating ourselves. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I love what you're saying, and how our body talks to us. And
Mm.
being in the healthcare profession, I find that a lot of times I've been doing cardiology and holistic cardiology, a holistic approach to cardiology for over 30 years. And I can't tell you the number of times and mostly with women, that they would come and they were concerned about their heart, which you should be. You should be. If you're having symptoms, you should certainly be concerned. Get a cardiology evaluation to rule out anything serious. And they would come and they would describe their symptoms. And I would think, okay, I'm pretty sure that all the tests are going to come back negative. These women are dealing with a lot. So
Mm.
I would open up the conversation and start asking them more things. What do you do? What about this? What about that? And there was so much emotional upheaval
Mhm.
that they would talk about.
Yeah.
And, they weren't making the connection between that and their heart because they were concerned about the physical part. And unfortunately, in medicine, Western medicine, we delve a lot into the physical, but we leave out the emotional and the spiritual. So, what these women wanted from me was tests, which I gladly gave them, diagnostic tests, rule out that indeed you're not having a heart attack or you don't have a heart that's not functioning properly. But then I would take it further with them and we would start talking about emotional and spiritual and that connection to
Yes.
your heart. And I could tell you, a lot of them, once they realized physically that they had a strong heart, and once we started talking and opened the door about the emotional and the spiritual,
Mhm.
they didn't have to come back again with symptoms because they knew if they got that tightness in their chest, they knew what it meant. Maybe I'm
Mhm.
working too hard, maybe this.
Yeah.
So they would stop, take a deep breath. And automatically, when you take a deep breath, you turn on your parasympathetic nervous system, the vagus
Mhm.
nerve. They would take a deep breath, they would feel better. And then they would ask themselves, why? Why am I feeling this tightness? Why am I feeling
Mhm.
this right now? And they would come up with an answer. So a lot of it was about getting people to recognize what their body was saying to them.
Yes.
And, initially it drove them for a cardiology consultation, which was the right thing. But then they learned how to manage themselves because, okay, I have a strong heart. I'm not having a heart attack, but I'm feeling this way. And what's going on with me emotionally and spiritually that could be contributing to that? So
Mm.
I think that's where a lot of our work comes in,
For
is
sure.
getting people to recognize, we're not saying don't get medical care,
Mm.
don't check things out that everything's emotional and spiritual, because that's not always the case. You could be in the middle of having a heart attack. And at that point, it doesn't matter how emotional and spiritual you are, you
Yeah,
have to
it's
take
true.
care of the physical. But I
Yes.
think when we could see that it's a blend of mind, body, spirit working together and regulating that nervous system, it puts
Mhm.
us more in control.
It
So if
does.
you want to elaborate more on that, or if you want to talk about another book, because I know you've written more than one
Yeah,
book,
it'll
I'm going
it'll
to leave it up to you.
yeah, thank you. And I so appreciate you bringing that up because it's so important that just that perspective shift, literally you being a wonderful, kind-hearted, you know, physician, a guide to offer them a different way to see and to relate to their bodies too. It's so important to have that. So that's also what I had a self discovery about. You know, I was up in my head a lot. I was always forward thinking. I was very hyper vigilant because of my upbringing. I took care of the household. I had to make my own lunch. We're talking second grade. I was doing these things. I had to do my own laundry. And yeah, a lot of pressure to do things. And then I was judged by my father, who never did anything. But that was his own insecurity, though, because he wasn't doing the thing. So I understand the dynamics now. I'm able to step back. I'm not pointing fingers and saying they were terrible, awful parents. I can see them that they were in their own survival patterns. They were doing what only they knew how to do because they didn't have somebody to lean in and listen and say, oh, have you thought about this way? But also there has to be people who are willing to listen too, right? Those that want a different perspective, such as you beautifully described, Teresa, about these patients that came to you and asked. They were concerned for their hearts, and then they found more about themselves in the process. And that's what I love to do with my clients, whether it's breath work or Reiki. I lean in and listen first to them, as you do. We're all speaking, we're all sharing, we're sharing stories. This is energy. And then being able to kind of tune into that and have them become aware of what's happening physiologically with the body. And then that eases the mind too, because then they have an answer. They have traction. It's just not on the hamster wheel. I'm so concerned about this, my health, but I never have time to sit down and pause. The mind keeps driving forward. That's its job. It's not right or wrong, but when it becomes chronic, the body can't keep up. And this is where it's like an Instant Pot, right? And we need to find that quick release valve. Just release that a little. Just ease that pressure. How can you breathe a little bit more? Where are your feet right now? Even those listening right now, even if you're driving, you can find your feet on the pedals. You probably don't feel them on the pedals a lot. More of the hands on the steering wheel gripping. Isn't that interesting as we're talking about that? So let's find our feet. This is what grounds us. You can actually breathe down into your feet, get into the parasympathetic nervous system, as Teresa was talking about, and be aware of how your body is right now. And this is what it is right now. That doesn't mean it's going to be that way in the future. Don't you think, Teresa, a lot of people get stuck in that, I'm feeling this tight, this tension, my heart's racing, things are not working so well. And then the mind's going to project that into the future of all the negative things. It never says, oh, yay, your body's getting ready because it's heightened about this job interview, or you're thinking about your child, or it doesn't speak that language. It speaks, oh no, this is a threat. Warning, warning, Will Rogers.
Yeah, definitely.
It's always on that hyper mode of threat. So when we can shift it, I say shift the script. Oh, this is how my body's responding right now. Just as you said about the heart racing. It's asking me to slow down. It's saying, take a breath. Even asking, I like to ask my clients, is this really happening right now? Or is this just something that the mind is projecting into the future? And it's not right or wrong. I want everybody to hear that. This is not a bad thing. It's just how we're hardwired. And guess what? It's going to keep happening because we have an amygdala and we have this beautiful alert system. That's what helps us maneuver traffic easy, right? Get out of the way, step off the curb, whatever that is. But when it's stuck on all the time, that's that constant humming. That's that unease. I find people, they know how to rest, so to speak, right? Try and get a good night's sleep, maybe have a spa day. That's just kind of stepping back from all the things. But is it really restoring your nervous system? Is it
Yeah.
building the capacity? Are you aware of when you're in that in between of feeling heightened and then feeling an easier space? And then all of a sudden it comes back up again. It's that kind of catch between. That's the sweet spot when it's like, oh, I can feel that I can self-regulate. And then another thought comes up, or I have this still anxiety of when is this feels good and when's the other shoe going to drop? I
Oh,
was just
yeah.
speaking to another client of mine. He actually said, things are going so well for me. I can't believe all these things are lining up, but still my nervous system feels like, is this true? And I said, well, you're building capacity, you're recognizing, and that's very common. When is the other shoe going to drop? This feels too good to be true. And then the mind will come in because of that 90-second rule, right? The cortisol, that's released in our system of a thought. And I forgot her name, Jill, Dr. Jill. She says it only takes 90 seconds for those chemicals to go through your system. And so if you can pause and just recognize that, focus your direction on a tree, look at a photo that brings you joy, focus on your breath. Where are my feet right now? Just take a breath, pause for 90 seconds. I guarantee you it will dissipate. I'm not saying you're going to see rainbows and unicorns. I'm
Uh-huh.
saying it's dissipating. And that's building that capacity.
Yeah. This is so interesting how we're talking about things. How has your writing,
Mm.
whether it be books, blogs, anything, how
And
has
that's
your
what I write
writing,
about, Teresa. I
yeah.
write about nervous system. I write about real effects of what's happening everyday life. I use what I find in myself as writing in my Substack, in my blog, and also for my book that I'm hoping to release on my mother's birthday
Okay.
next year as a tribute to her. Because
Oh,
and the book started because of recognizing that lion's roar,
yeah.
recognizing my own journey through the internal landscape and how biodynamic breathwork and trauma release system really allowed my body to release that trauma that was infused in my fascia, as science shows now. Memories, emotion
Mm.
are in the connected tissue between the muscles. And I might be speaking a little bit off the cuff here, but for anyone who's curious about that, you can find it on my website later. We'll talk about that. But just to give you a segue into my book, it is the journey. And what started was a horrific car accident I was in with my mother at the age of 9. I flew out the back window. She rolled the car. She was heavily medicated on prescription drugs, as I said before. And she rolled the car. Thank God it was a Volvo back in the 70s. I flew out the back window. I don't remember that. I just remember waking up with my leg under the car, under the back passenger tire.
Oh,
And because she drove with both feet on the pedals because of her rheumatoid arthritis, she had both of her feet on those pedals. And the people came over to the driver's side. They didn't see me lying on the ground on the other side.
oh,
And they asked her to put the car in park. Well, she rolled over my leg twice. She went through
oh,
the gears. I was waking up and I literally still see that tire rolling over my leg.
oh,
And then when she went into reverse before
oh.
park, that's when I really screamed, Mommy, Mommy, I'm 9 years old. And this woman came around the other side, and she just lost it, of course. And then my mother had a nervous breakdown in the car. So when we were in the ambulance, roles reversed. I didn't have the mother to console me, to tell me it was okay. She just was screaming, I almost killed you. I almost killed you. What did I do? What did I do? And I was 9 saying, Mommy, I'm okay. Mommy, I'm here. Mommy, can't you see me? And so that's how I start the book.
Oh,
And then I go
wow.
into understanding how the nervous system, how the roles are created, and how biodynamic breath work through an in-person training, how my body remembered flying out the back window. And it's pretty powerful. Now, I'm not saying that everybody's going to have the same experience as I did with biodynamic breath work. In training, you're in training, and it's very intense because you're in training. Online, as I support people, we go very gentle. We want to melt the outer layers. We want your nervous system to feel safe, to be able to release the little bubbles that are coming up to the surface. Now, have I had clients have revelations or big aha moments? Yes, because they trusted themselves, they trusted their breath, and they allowed themselves to go a little deeper with the breath work. So that's what I love to do, and I love to share about my experiences, because people are walking around. They're wondering, why am I feeling so tense? Why does this memory keep flashing up? I should be over it. That's what we tell ourselves, right? In our culture, suck it up, pull up those bootstraps. You don't have time to process this, but our bodies need that.
Yeah. Yeah, you do such interesting work, and it sounds like your books totally align with what you do. So that even if somebody reads your book, if I'm a big believer in that we could share everything that's in our book on a blog, on YouTube, on any platform. We could give the whole book away to people by speaking and talking about it, and they'll still work with us
Mm-hmm.
because they want to. It's that resonance and they want to take it further. And it sounds like you do the same thing, that you give people some tools. You
Of
give them, you
course.
talk about it online, you talk about it in your blog, in your books, and people still come and they work with you. And I think that's important because a lot of times as authors, you'll see ads or you'll see something, somebody's promoting a book, and they'll say, I have 10 secrets to whatever. Here's the first 2 secrets. To get the others, you have to buy my book.
Mm,
And I believe that then they take away clients because, you're telling somebody, it's like dangling a carrot in front of them.
mm-hmm.
Well, you could only have this if you do that. And I think it's such a poor marketing technique,
Yes, that's a very
and
good point. Yeah,
yeah,
and go ahead.
yeah, that people don't realize uh, that we could still sell and have sales, but we
Mm-hmm.
don't have to withhold information in order to do that. I think the more we're open, and it opens us up, it opens our clients up. And I think then we actually get more sales
Mm,
because people see us as being gratuitous, as being generous, and it attracts them to us
mm,
instead of well, here's how you could heal your heart. I'm going to tell you this. Here's one breath work, but for the rest of it you have to buy my book. Well, no, nobody should have to buy your book to get information that's essential for living a better life. I don't believe that
yeah.
at all, and it
Yeah.
sounds like you don't also.
Yes, it
And
is. Just what you're saying, Teresa. People, we're humans, and this is what we are craving is transparency. We want to know. about the other people. We want to know their vulnerable insights and not just surface level. And so a lot of people, I'm an advanced scuba diver, so I say a lot of people are snorkeling above, right? They got their fins on, they have their mask, but they can still breathe. I'm ready to deep dive. Let's go down 100 feet. Let's explore down there. And I have a dive buddy. You can come down with me and explore this internal landscape, because that's where the golden nuggets are. We can conceptualize, we can think about it, we can, again, read all the things, but until we get in there very easy, very gently, and this is where the trust comes in. The transparency builds trust, builds safety. People want to feel safe. Oh, Teresa's great. I love her, the guests that she brings on, her own experiences she shares every single time. I'm learning something from her. This is what I hear from you, Teresa. And people want to come back because they're curious. What else is she going to share about today? What else am I going to learn here? And that's what people want. We are humans. We are very curious. We're very curious about each other. And then that leads more into curiosity about ourselves. So I always say that it's curiosity is the key. Curiosity about, oh, I wonder why I'm lashing out all of a sudden. I never used to be that way. Yes, maybe I'm premenopausal or postmenopausal, whatever that is. Maybe there's some chemical imbalances, but also that heightens our bodies. It really brings stuff up to the surface to where this is the time of life to let that stuff go. We don't have to carry the load.
Yeah, this is so fascinating. We're having such a great conversation. And normally we go 30 to 45 minutes, so we have a little bit of time left. How could people get in touch with you? If they want to
Mhm.
work with you, learn more about you, and find your books, how can they do that?
Well, I have a Substack account, Living with Intention, April Wyett. I also, my website is livingwithintention.co, and also LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I'm on most of the platforms, so you can find me there. You can also find the book, Moving Beyond Boxes. I think it's in the show description, and also a little journal, a mindfulness journal that I created. That actually I took the photo of on the front cover of these koi, Japanese koi in a pond, and I love that. So if anybody's curious about me and want to lean in and take a deeper listen, I'm here for you. And that's what living with intention is all about.
Yeah. And I tell you, the reason I love the Author's Corner, and I am a guest host. I don't think I introduced myself in the beginning, but that's okay. And I've been guest hosting probably for about 6 months, I would say. And what I like most about it is it's not just about the books.
Mm.
It's not about people coming on. Sure, it's important to have your book out there, to sell your book, to sell products, whatever you have. That is important because a lot of people make a living off of that. But I think it's also just as important to have these conversations with people.
Mhm.
Why they wrote the book, how does that tie in, and how do they work with people? To get to know the person. And that's what I love about the Author's Corner is I get to know more personally. Like you said, a deeper dive, not just the surface. I get to know who people are, what drives them, how they do things. And then I totally understand why they are successful, just
Mhm.
like with you. I would work with you in a minute because you're very genuine and you're very real.
Mm.
And that's what I really like. So I want to thank you so much for joining me today. Is
Mm.
there any last words that you want to leave our listeners with?
Yes. I just invite you to place your attention on your intention. So we have wonderful intentions to do things, to write the books, since this is the author's corner, right? We want to write a book. We want to share knowledge or share our story. And we need to redirect our attention. Where is my attention right now for that? Because life will get in the way. Our minds are very creative to distract us away from things that we really want to do. And there might be some fear, some imposter syndrome, some, is anybody even going to read this type of in the background happening? Although I invite you to be curious and lean in and listen to why are these thoughts coming up? These are just patterns. And this also brought it back to me really quick. I was dyslexic as a child. I never thought I would write a book ever. I detested reading. It was so confusing to me. And I felt like I wasn't enough because I couldn't keep up with the reading. That was also something I've learned in my studies about nervous system, about development and trauma. That is a sign of trauma, is dyslexia, because the brain in utero wasn't formed correctly. Something was happening there. So when I realized that, when I sat with that, and I heard my father's voice in a meditation saying, you have to study harder. You're never going to amount to the other students. This is just something that you're going to have to live with. I was just, that's a bunch of BS belief system, right? That is your insecurity that you placed upon me because your child, as a teacher, he was a teacher, was feeling shame about. And again, this is all about learning, right? That internal landscape, just navigating it, leaning in and listening, asking questions and being curious without being able to be, re-traumatized or go down into that vortex, because there's a fine line there, right? So I know that was a lot at the end.
Oh, that's fine.
But
that's fine.
Yeah, I was dyslexic. And sure, when I'm tired, now I recognize it. I'm tired. I have to reread what I just read. I have to take a breath, slow down my reading. And my brain just processes things differently. And I'm glad it does, because then I was able to take in the nature, the external world, and appreciate that and feel the energy of that. So that's just a little bit about me to end the show
That's
on.
great. That's great. I just love the fact how much you shared about yourself. And we had such an inspirational and dynamic conversation. And I think it's opened up a venue for people to see that, when you write a book, it's not just about writing a book. It's not something that you just want to do.
Yeah.
When you sell books, it's not just about having this marketing plan and saying, oh, I'm going to try to reach so many people with this, with that, with bestseller status, with whatever it is. That it's more about connection. And it's that human connection, so that if people could connect with you, they're going to connect with your book. If they can't connect with you, they're not going to be able to connect with your book because it doesn't seem real. And the best advice I ever got from someone, one of my mentors, was I wanted to be perfect. And I told my mentor, I said, it took me 5 hours to try to do one segment. I'm trying to build my YouTube channel. And I said, just wasn't right, this and that. And the person said to me, quit trying to be perfect. People like messy. Because
Exactly.
messy reminds us that we're human. And when you're messy, you're
Yes.
showing others and giving others permission to be human, and they're going to connect with you. She said, they don't care if your hair is perfect, if your lighting is perfect, what your background. She said, they want to hear from you. And you
Mhm.
could only do that if you're messy. So I thank her a lot for that. I really do. It was Colette Baron Reed. They told me people like messy. And
Yes.
yeah, she's right. They do. I just never realized it before because in certain areas, I wanted perfection.
Mm,
Hair right, makeup right, clothing right, everything right to come off as polished.
mm.
But as our conversation showed us today, we could still be polished even when we're messy. So
Yes. I
messy and
love that.
polished go together. So thank you for joining me today.
Thank you
And
for having
anyone that
me.
wants to get in touch with you does have your information. And I so much appreciated this, and we'll have to have you back again so that
I
we
would
could
love
further the
that.
conversation. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you everyone for
Thank
listening
you.
to this. I know we went a little bit over, but that's fine. We had a most engaging conversation and we've truly, truly needed this time. As always, I appreciate all our subscribers, everyone who watches us. So thank you, everyone. And with that, the music will take us out.